Okay, with this grounding exercise, we're going to focus on sight or vision, just connecting with our senses. So in this exercise, you'll want to gaze your eyes towards a window or a natural space, if possible, and just keeping your eyes open, but with a soft gaze. Just noticing the contact between your body and the chair and your feet on the floor. And just noticing your breath, connecting with the feel of your body and the rhythm of your breath. And just see if you can notice 3 different shapes in the room or out the window. 3 different shapes that draw your eye. And just seeing if you can notice 3 different colours that grab your attention. Maybe it's the sky, or a leaf out the window, or some wooden furniture. Just connecting with that sense of sight and vision and leaving the others to one side. And when you're ready, just bringing your focus back into your body and back into the room with all your senses. And maybe you want to try that exercise when you're in the garden or on the allotment or on a walk, just distinguishing vision from all your other senses and connecting with what you can see in nature.
Thank you, Alice, and my name's Emma and I work in the Greenlinks team, and I'm going to talk to you today about your vital toolkit, looking after yourself and things to get you started in gardening. So as you can see here, I've got my lovely shelves, and on here we have a number of items which will really help when you're preparing to go out to garden, when you're going out to your allotment, or when you perhaps might come along and join a Greenlinks group. So starting at the top here, we have fetching woolly hat, very bright fleece, and a waterproof jacket. And what this enables you to do is be nice and warm, but be able to take those layers off as perhaps you get working and get a little bit warmer. The other thing we have on this shelf here is a lovely knee pad, and you can pretty much use any type of support you want, but it really helps as you're kind of maybe doing a little bit of weeding, or maybe you actually just want to take a seat on the edge of a raised bed. You've got something cushioned to help when you take those really important rest breaks. And the one thing I don't have on my shelf, but I do have on my feet, are a sensible pair of shoes. So mine are a little bit mucky, but what it's most important is that you've got your toes covered so you can work safely in the garden. So next in our toolkit are some vital supplies to help us kind of just think about things that we typically need quite regularly as part of our gardening session. So we have some gardening gloves. So these have just got a little bit of protection, so if you're weeding some of those pesky nettles, things like that, you've just got that extra bit of protection. Keep your hands nice and safe. We have some secateurs or gardening scissors, and these are really important part of our toolkit. So for pruning different things that we might want to, so any vigorous plants in the garden, and also for taking cuttings if we want to share plants with other people. And gardening scissors are just as good. Don't have to be expensive, but just really good to take care of them, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So next in our toolkit are our trowel and our fork. And what you'll notice here is I have left a little bit of mud on there. So it's good to look after your tools and keep them nice and clean and dry. So these tools are used for planting and for weeding. And again, you don't have to have very expensive kit, but these will really help to be able to get to those hard to reach weeds, and also to be able to transplant some of the things that you've been growing at home by getting into the soil a little bit deeper. And next we have our seed collection. So again, you don't have to have lots of seeds, and you might find that there are seed swaps or ways that you can kind of share seeds. If you come along to a group, you might be able to come and just sort of choose a small selection, but it's going to be an important part of your toolkit just to have the seeds that you particularly want to grow as part of that getting started in the garden. So next we have our plant pots. So this is just a standard plant pot, and this is going to be a great way for you to get things like beans and squashes started. Later on in the series we're going to be talking about sowing tomato seeds, and again you might need a tray for those things. So in your toolkit it's important to have some containers. The great thing is you don't have to spend lots of money, you can recycle things from your own home, and again it's a really good way to sort of maybe swap, perhaps see if there are little stores of pots that you can perhaps go and borrow or swap once you're moving your plants into larger pots. Okay, next in our kit are our labels, a pencil or permanent marker, whatever your preferences might be. But these are really important, again, to get you started in the garden. As you're sowing seeds, as you're moving your plants into bigger pots, having a record of what the type of vegetable or fruit is, and when you sowed that, is going to be really important for you to keep your records. If you use a pencil, you can rub out your writing and reuse the label. If you can use a permanent marker, you just need a little bit of wire wool and some washing up liquid, so we can always recycle these. And if you are super organised, you can even use things like milk bottles and make your own plant labels by cutting strips from your recycled bottles. Next we are going to our garden twine or string. You don't have to have lots of this, but it's a really useful resource to have in your toolkit. So it might be that you are tying up a plant, maybe a bean that's going up a pole. It could be that something in your garden has slightly broken and you need to do a quick fix, but just for a small amount of money you can have something that's really vital to help you when you're around the garden. So we're talking about looking after yourself in the garden and some things that are really important as part of that. So sunscreen, and from spring all the way through to late summer, even if you've just got a little bottle in your toolkit, really important to look after yourself when you're out in the garden, if you're nice and absorbed in planting or weeding, just to keep you from getting sunburnt. And then finally we'll cover these together. So when you're in the garden, sometimes the morning or the afternoon can whir away, and it's really important to look after your hydration. Make sure you're drinking lots of water, and also maybe just to have a snack, just to make sure you're keeping your energies levels up. So obviously banana and fruit is really good. Got some fruit bar, muesli bars here, but yeah, really important as part of your daily gardening kit just to have some things to hand to make sure you don't get dehydrated. Okay, so it's really important when you to look after your tools in your toolkit. And so, for example, with your fork and your trowel, Really simple way of looking after these is to give them a wipe or a wash down once you've used them and just dry them off. So if they're wooden handled like this, that means that the wood's not going to warp. Sometimes the metal can go rusty if you leave your tools wet where they are, so really important to just dry those off. And secondly, another really good tool, particularly for things like your secateurs and scissors, are something like a water dispersing liquid, which when you've finished using your secateurs, you can give them a wipe down, make sure they keep nice and rust free, and they're ready to use the next time you want to go out in the garden. So it's really important to look after your tools, and they will look after you in the garden. So I hope that's been useful in talking through some really helpful things to get started in the garden with your toolkit, and some brief tips on how you can look after those tools.